The Millennials. My generation. Not the best generation, but a fantastic one nonetheless. What makes you a millennial? Well, being born from 1982 to still disputed even by the people who, wrote the game on generations. Somewhere 2004 to 2006. That might seem like a lot of time. But you have to understand that it really depends on where you're spending most of your rising adult years. And being that the crisis, which started in 2007, 2008, and is still ongoing to this day, and probably will keep going until the 2030s, don't tell me you don't feel that in the air. That's where you're spending most of your rising adult years. You are a millennial. Just because you prefer fentanyl to suicide does not make you a different generation. In fact, they're practically one and the same. So, what happened in the 1980s where people started being millennials and stopped being 13ers? That all kind of goes with how people felt towards kids. If the movie Children of the Corn were released 5-10 years earlier, probably would have been a success at the box office. But it was a flop. And it doesn't make much sense because The Omen, Rosemary's Baby, those were fantastic films for their time. Try releasing Baby Geniuses in the 70s. Boring. But basically what happened is an event called the Boomer Awakening. And what happened with the Boomer Awakening is that baby boomers just started having kids. And they wanted to raise a really great generation of kids. And they kind of failed, but there were some good things. Alright, check it out. So it's the early 80s. Wages are kind of stagnating. The economy's not so great. And if you're a baby boomer, you want to go chill with your friends still. Boom chill's the place to be. You're not going to stop doing that just because you had a kid. But you love your kid because you're a baby boomer and not a silent generation raising a latchkey. So what do? Well, you're not going to hire a babysitter because that criminal-ass 13er who's a teenager right now and is available to babysit, you're not going to do a good job of watching your kid now. So you take that baby to the party. And you realize all the other parents, that's what they're doing too. All your friends are having babies. They start bringing their kids to the parties. And before you know it, there's just a separate room full of babies. One starts fussing and everything. Go pick them up, you pat them on the back. They stop crying. You go back to whatever baby boomers were doing at the boom chills. I'm not going to mention any drugs on here. Now, those kids, those babies, they grew into toddlers. Rugrats is a fantastic depiction of what being a millennial baby was like. The playpen, the little enclosed area that the babies would play in while the parents went to the kitchen to go talk. The backyard. Eventually, we got old enough to go play in the backyard. And then it wasn't long after that, we were old enough to start being out on the street playing football, moving to the sidewalk every time a car came by so we can get that next play in. And playing with all the neighborhood kids. And key thing here, there really wasn't a lot of adult supervision. The oldest was in charge. Some baby boomer would peek their head out every now and again. The kids really weren't getting into trouble, though. Now, what this did is it taught millennials how to work together really well. And for all millennials' faults, the one thing we are really good at is being cohesive and taking on big projects. Millennials are inventing a lot of fantastic things right now in the tech world. Very big things over at NASA too. It is a wonderful time to be a millennial. I mean, sure, most of us are never going to have a house. And those of us that do have houses in very out of the way locations. That being said, we're getting by. A lot of us are living with a set of parents. If you're like me, I've met a few people like me who move in with the in-laws. Yeah, that's a pretty fun thing to do. I like it. Or you can be some other people I know who live with their own parents. That's cool too. Now, I'm kind of losing my train of thought. Even though we're like broke as hell, I think it is still incredibly fun to be a millennial. Like, there's all these little phenomena. I don't like all the social bullshit we're getting into. I never did. When I was like in my very young rising adult years, I felt like all the different protests were like, the hell is this gonna accomplish? This ain't gonna do anything. And it didn't. And sometimes it worked backwards, but whatever. At the end of the day, we all went to the bar, had an obsession with alcohol. A lot of us quit when we were having kids. I don't drink all that much anymore after having a kid. Stopped really. I just became less frequent. I probably have like one drink a week. And I'm like a one and done guy unless I'm at like a private residence and I'm not going to be driving anytime soon. I don't like getting drunk at my own house though, and that's where I spend most of my time. And a lot of millennials are like that. I have cousins who just don't drink anymore at all because they had kids, and that's kind of the focus of their lives. We're kind of on the back end of the over-coddling era, which a lot of the early millennials, late 13ers did. I mean, I'm seeing people my age. We don't really approve of that, having cameras in our kids' bedrooms. Like, I know a lot of the late 13ers, early millennials are giving their kids tablets that are kind of spiked with spyware, so you can watch what they're watching and know what they're up to. I'm just not giving my kid a tablet. It seems like a lot of people my age are like, yeah, we don't want our kids growing up on tablets. We're gonna go to the park more. My daughter watches TV. I don't really approve of her having a tablet. She's not even gonna have social media. That's kind of the answer there. I'm all for her getting hurt. I'm sorry, helicopter parents, but having... What was I gonna say? Sorry, I got distracted. What was it? Having... Like, your kids just shouldn't even be on social media. I don't care if you're spying on them. Like, that stuff is detrimental to mental health. I mean, if you're a millennial, here's another thing that really defines us. All the ungodly things we saw in the internet's Wild West phase. Like, our parents didn't know how to use the internet. We knew how to bypass all the security protocols they put in place. And, yeah, we saw some things. I won't talk much more about that. But, I just wonder what happened to us, too. Like, it seems like, oh my god, that material is so offensive. I'm so offended by what you just posted. It's like, bruv, you were 12 years old when you were watching that ungodly video with two women in a cup. What happened to you? When did you turn so weak? That's some frustration I'm having with my generation right now. But I think overall, like, I like how I think we're a little friendlier than most generations. Like, Zoomers aren't necessarily unfriendly, they're just very antisocial. I don't think a generation's ever been more antisocial. But I mean, there's some of that in millennials too, so you can cut them some slack. Golden era of customer service that is now coming to an end. Aren't a lot of millennials still working in retail. So life kind of sucks when you go to the supermarket now. The help just isn't really there. Unless there are those millennials still working in retail. Shout out to you. One of the things I don't like, all the little self-diagnosed treatments, not treatments, but mental illnesses being thrown about. I've been guilty of this too, don't get me wrong. When I was a teen, in my youth, I was guilty of that shit. But whatever. Let's stop doing that. And let's, that crisis is coming. Let's handle it.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Oh my
Check
God.
your Wi-Fi.
Trouble connecting to the internet. I'm not on the internet. I'm outside, homie. Alright. Let's handle this crisis really well. Let's, really band together and handle business. Unify. Let's throw all the... don't put your faith in politicians. They ain't gonna do anything. It really starts at the community level. We can really work together and make a difference. I know it sounds like bullshit, but get to know your neighbors and shit. Say hello. Introduce yourself. I know it's hard when you're used to being on a computer, not having to deal with any people all day. Give it a go, though.